Hello everybody, I am Gintas Minčiūnas, Head of Programming Staff, and today we will talk about Macro API. We will define what the macro is. When macro is used, we will look at how the macro works for end user. We will briefly look at an example of creating the macro. And finally, I'll point to the resources available about Macro API. What is the macro? Macro is the program attached to the furniture component that is interpreted by a postprocessor and finally processed on a CNC machine. Here you can see how the machining is done for paper holder insertion, using a pocketing and special operation to sharpen the corners of the pocket. All these operations are specified by macro that is defined in the paper holder component. So, when macro is used? When it is not possible to perform CNC machining using standard compound CAM operations, when a special machine operation or procedure needs to be called up, when it is necessary to use a special tool for CAM operation. As an example, it can be the lamello-climax type connection. On some CNC machines, it can be made by a special mill or by a special saw blade. How macro works for woodwork end user? As an example, I will show it on the lamello-climax connection. First, the component should be placed. For this, insert or attach command is used. Then, sculpt command should be called to shape the parts to fit the component. In the CAM environment, the macro command should be called to obtain the CNC machining. Finally, the output command should be called to generate the CNC file. And a miracle happened. Lamello-climax was inserted into the component's manufacturing technology. All this data came from the placed component. The main and the only reason of this is the macro attached to the component. We will cover how to attach and define the macro on a simple wooden dowel component. Basically, the main task is to bring the following text from the component to the CAM output file, in our case to the MPR file. First of all, the component itself must be designed with the correct geometry. Second, the component must contain solid bodies for sculpt command. And the coordinate system must be set up properly. And the last thing that needs to be done is the macro definition. Macro program itself. It should be defined in the macro call definition. In the other words, the short program must be written. The macro programming is based on JavaScript. But don't worry, a deep programming knowledge of JavaScript is not required. It is enough if you can assign value to a variable, call a procedure, or use one of the object properties. The macro definition is for the specific CNC machine, is attached to one of the surface bodies, and belongs to the defined coordinate system. All necessary data must be returned from the result function. You can use any functions and procedures inside macro definition, but the final result of macro should be returned via result function. Here is what the final code of inserting macro wooden dowel looks like. As you can see, it's just over 60 lines of code in total. Here is the main result function I told earlier, and two helper functions to get the edge number and dowel position. Not so much. But after processing, the macro outputs a text of the CNC machining. A deep look at the result function shows how we code the desired outcome. In short, it is essentially collecting the necessary data into a single string. For the code adjustment, there is an option to debug preview the macro output. It helps to make the necessary changes quickly and on the spot. And of course, all API objects, their properties, methods are available when creating the macro. As you can see, it doesn't have a lot of items to observe. I will briefly go over this hierarchy. The top object in this hierarchy is macro object, and it contains all the properties and methods you need. As a rule, the first property is the name of the macro itself. The body name points to the solid body to which macro was attached. The side property is the plane coordinate system to which the macro belongs. The align side property indicates the side on which the macro was created in. The clamping property gets the clamping coordinate system data and is usually used to transform all calculated coordinates by it. The origin property gets the location where the macro was inserted. The reference coordinate system is used to transform points and vectors. The last property is the workpiece, which provides the data about the dimensions and oversizing of the workpiece. Resources of macro API. First, it is Woodwork for Inventor manual. It is the primary source of knowledge for gaining a basic understanding of how the command works. Second is the SDK macro help. It is the main source of knowledge for a complete description of macro API programming. Third, there are samples for macro, where you will find many samples of how to create and use macro. And fourth, Woodwork for Inventor support. Here, our team is always ready to answer your questions and support you. And in conclusion, start coding, or for those who are already doing it, keep coding. It's totally easy, fun, and gives amazing results. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye and have a good day.